Sunan Abu Dawud Volume 3, in the translation of Professor Ahmad Hasan, talks about the courts and judgments in general. It talks about divination. It talks about slaves. The focus on liberating the slaves. And there were no wars fought for the sake of acquiring slaves. You know, the thing that they say about Islamic slave raiders, and that wasn't because of Islam. Punishment, battles, general ethics. You got stuff about rings. You got stuff about general prophetic traditions, which is where in Sunan Abu Dawud we depart from the more rationalistic, legalistic sort of distinction that Abu Dawud holds in general. Is there's not the focus of this is worth so many prayer points, and there's not all big old chapters like this, but you do have stuff that is focused on belief, other than just you believe in one God and the angels and the prophets, and you have clothes, baths, and dialectics. There's a chapter on transsexuals, and the chapter on transsexuals makes clear some things, like you don't kill a transsexual who hasn't abandoned their prayer, but you do banish the ones who make the distinction with the regarding the women. That are, the ones that are telling people's secrets about their bodies that you can't tell with them covered, that sort of thing. They're to be, the eunuchs are kept away, but there's people who, take on the male and female roles that they're, because in the Judeo-Christian tradition, a fundamentalist or conservative would kill those individuals. They'd kill a lot of people that Islam does not allow people to be killed. And how much of this was back in the day acceptable? I mean, rather than just a society deciding it was acceptable, it's not really for me to say, but it's not part of this dispensation. The person who hires a sorcerer, the person who has sex during, the vaginal intercourse during the menstruation or the post-childbirth, and the person who commits sodomy or allows sodomy to be done to them is, they don't have part in the dispensation. Now, a lot of people talk about prophecy, and prophecy isn't just some guesswork thing. People need to knock it off that, if I'm better than chance, then no. That's guesswork, and you can do that, but, don't claim spiritual authority or knowledge of the unseen and that sort of thing. When I refer to symbolism on my channel, I'm not saying that this star, because of this star in this place, or this planet in this place, and this must happen, or this is the case. It's a symbolic language that you can use. You can say stuff about numbers, but it's not, not that, it's not determinism. It's not fate. This chapter does talk about you don't curse time. You don't curse fate. You don't curse things that may bring benefit. We are allowed to use mystical diagrams and stuff like this, even drawing things. Certainly, we're not sitting or walking on the names of God like a lot of the, the sahir, the sorcerer, the evil magician. Nor are we saying, because I've drawn this and let's see how the birds fly over it and therefore it's determined this. There are diagrams that animals will react to, but that's not the same thing. So let's not separate our diagrams or our art, you could say, from the prophetic tradition. It's not the same as bird divination and stuff like this. We're not doing that. We just don't take those sorts of omens. There's no unlucky months. There's no, our stomach pains aren't some spiritual, our physical things. It's not, we're not supposed to presume they're spiritual attacks. There are spirits that appear like snakes, but you test them and see if they are a snake or something. Owls don't shriek, and animals don't react how they are, because it's really, a spirit in a guise. There are spirits that take on guises, but, says dogs and donkeys notice things that we don't, and sometimes, and you seek refuge with God when you hear that sort of thing, or you extol God in reference to the the birds that like the rooster that announce the dawn, and you certainly don't curse the animals that harboring something good like that or mark time of day for the prayer. Some of the superstitions and rebels, like, Egypt and Tagut, seem to come from, descend from ancient Babylon or ancient Egypt or something. And some people are gonna throw in, you abjure things by the name of God. You don't, it's not that, you mentioned the right prophet or that sort of thing. Belief is the central thing, and if the formula is whatever. But that doesn't mean you don't try to get the formula right. You don't willy-nilly just go around paraphrasing the prophetic practices and particularly the scripture. Now, the dialects that the Quran is in, 7 recognized dialects, some narrations say 10. Another mystical thing that we can refer to is we learn about the Mugarrabun, and the Mugarrabun are said to be the spiritual offspring of humans and the jinn, the fire beings, the fallen angels, as we might say in English. But when I say fallen angels, let's not get confused and think it's the same as the Malaika, or the Malaika became jinn, or no one's saying that. In English, we don't believe in ghouls in Islam. Spirits don't hurt us. There is consensus and such, and narrations in here point this out. we see that certain punishments were added, are made greater under Umar in particular, but Ali is said to have been very strict about making all his rulings direct upon what Prophet Muhammad had revealed to him and what he was inspired to say. What Prophet Muhammad was inspired to say. So if there was any change, it was, particularly after the Umayyad period. And that's what we hear, is that in Sunan Abu Dawud, we have the reference to how around the time of the killing of al-Hussein, this isn't listed as why, but if you look at the date, that this is when the community would no longer be ruled by Islam. So, but this book does, Ibn Abdulaziz, one of the commentators whose opinion is recorded in this book, his opinion is that he's one of the rightly guided caliphs, not even though Hassan and Hussein continued the tradition in that pure sense, being not as bad as the other Muawiyah rulers. He's there and mentioned as such. The people don't take the place of others in punishment. The free man for the free man, the slave for the slave, that sort of thing. They don't, the free person isn't punished for what a slave does, and the other isn't punished for the other. There's careful treatment of the slaves, which would be, a lot of, most employees would like to be in a position where they could eat and dress like their employers. Of the people of the book, there are sects, but of the people that are considered Muslim, there are 73 sects. But the one group that will succeed is the group that isn't ruling by their desires. We're reminded when we interpret to go based off of clarity. And that clarity is, of the knowledge, and not to divide over hermetic meanings.